has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Right.
He may even come home late and he's acting different. And the wife may start to say, I wonder if he have a woman. And she sits down there for weeks. And he's wondering, why is she giving me face? He probably came home from work. Boss was really unreasonable that day.
So, tell me, how did you meet?
All right, so I met my now ex-husband while we were at the University of the West Indies. Many years ago.
Many years ago, with a sojourn on the campus. You both saw and had that kind of meeting.
Yes, and we connected as friends. We got to know each other very well.
Yes.
And we shared a lot about our lives, you know, and that sort of brought us closer.
Yes.
And then it developed into a relationship.
Yes.
You know, and so we both finished university. We had a son.
Yes.
Before I graduated, actually.
That's interesting.
And we were together for quite a few years before we actually got married.
Oh. Like how many years?
Maybe about 6-7 years.
Okay. Right.
No, probably a little longer than that.
Okay, that's
probably a little longer than that. But what was, I don't know if you'd say interesting about this, was that we got married, you know, because that was a natural progression.
But before you got married, give me an understanding of the relationship that you both shared.
I would say we had a good, solid relationship.
You would say that?
I would say that. It was built on friendship. As I said, we were friends.
Before.
We shared about each other. We got to know each other, you know, our past, our history. And we shared freely about our experiences growing up. We knew all about all the lows and the highs and the everything of each other's life coming up to when we knew each other.
Yes.
You know, we talked about the really hard places, you know, and we talked about the good places. So we didn't really hold anything back from each other.
Very open relationship.
Yes. You know.
And so that union at the time now produced your son, who also went you and is off traveling the world and working overseas and so on. Yeah. So with this happy relationship and having a son, with everything going well.
Yeah.
It's I just want to ask a question this way for the interest of it. What made you then marry? Since you never married before, why are you marrying now?
Because the natural progression to us, the next step to us was to get married. I mean, there wasn't anything saying like, don't get married.
Okay.
It was the natural progression. We were together for many years. We were having a good relationship. We had a child together. You know?
So there was nothing like...
It was like it was time.
Right, I know. But what would have kind of influenced that to say... I mean, I know society and maybe family and friends, church. What for you would have influenced the push for the marriage, given that you were having such a good relationship?
I think it could also be that we both have parents who are... Because his parents are still married after how many years? They're in their late 70s, early 80s. So we had the example of a good, lasting marriage. You know, it wasn't like people were saying you have to get married now or whatever. That was, as a matter of fact, it was always our intention, I should say.
Okay.
I think it was something that we were thinking about for quite a while, and then oddly enough, all kinds of things kept getting in the way. And the last thing that got in the way was that my father died. And we had to put it off again. You know, we were saying like, okay, we're going to get married at this particular time. And then the last thing I remember was that my father died. And that sort of just threw everything off. You know, and then after that, it was after that we got married.
So then yours is a privilege and task then, Kate, to talk us through with this I can't see any loophole from the description that you have given me. You know, in terms of you were friends, you shared your highs and your lows. Yes. I mean, these are critical and important things. Yes, right. You were together and grew together like that as friends and open. Had a son.
Yeah.
And all that, a crescendo almost to marriage. And then now how you're going to fill in the gap between now the marriage and now you're divorced and single.
But before that though, can I ask you, before you got married, so everything was going well based on what you're telling us. But before you got married, did you actually decide to go and, you know, do marriage counseling or?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I knew that had to be done. But I have to tell you, looking back, it was marriage counseling, yes, but we needed far more than what we got from it. And that's something I also have a concern with when couples tell me they're getting married. The first thing I ask them, are you getting good, solid counseling? Because what happens is that we book the Pegasus. We booked the honeymoon in St. Lucia.
Everything's set.
And then 2 weeks before the wedding date, we run to Pastor and say, Pastor, we need to have a wedding. We need to have some premarital counseling. By which time, if anything comes up,
right?
How are you going to do it? Exactly. Your deposit. Yes. You have deposited half the money, which could be thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Right.
And then next thing you can't get another date for the venue till next year because it's booked up for the rest of the year. So that tends to be what happens with a lot of couples. They set the date and then they go. We didn't do that.
Okay.
We recognized that we needed it and we went. Unfortunately, what we didn't recognize was that what we were getting, we needed more than that.
Okay.
Right? That I was looking at it now. What we got, you know, we had the right intentions. We knew we needed it, but we just didn't get as much as we needed. Right?
I mean, I'll probe a little more, but go ahead. No,
yeah.
You ask a question because yeah.
So that gap now you fill in, was it a gradual disintegration of this wonder of a relationship? Not asking you to blame anybody, just trying to understand.
I think what happens with many people, and we were no different, is that we expected our lives to be a continuation of what it was before we got married. That is not the case. And I will say that to any couple. If you have been living together for 50 years and you plan to get married, don't say, oh, we've been living together and we have all the children. Because in Jamaica, we have a saying that as soon as people married after them live together for how much years, they mash up. And it may be true, but marriage is, I don't know how to explain it to you, but when you get married, it's a different thing from when even if you're living together, you have a long-standing relationship.
Yes.
You have to go and get quality premarital counseling
and support.
And aside from that, you need to have marriage enrichment.
Yes, support is important.
After.
Yes.
And we didn't realize that we needed marriage enrichment support after. Because we didn't go to anybody when we started having challenges. And I think I'm probably running ahead of...
No, that's all right. That's all right.
You know?
Yes.
So it's critical that, you know, persons who are getting married have the quality premarital counseling. And you don't just get married and forget about that. You know, you have marriage support programs. If there isn't one, because I find that churches do have, not all churches, but, you know, I think churches are recognizing the need. But if it's even coming up to your anniversary, you do a retrospective. You look at what happened this year. Were we closer? Were we further apart? What worked for us this year? What didn't work? It can be as basic as that. But getting into a structured program with other couples is also very helpful, right? Or having an independent third party, because I can tell you, if you happen to have cheated on your wife and then your wife go and tell her mother, that relationship with your beloved mother-in-law is dead forever. So even when the two of you have worked it out and you're working it together, her father still wants to shoot you every time he sees you. So you get independent help. I
agree.
You know, it's not everything you tell the family. There are certain things you bring the family in and you can say to them, we need some support. Can you help us? But there are certain things, it might be better that you find an independent third party because we don't want the family to be broken down. Because you know, marriage is a family affair. It's not just two people.
Got you.
I agree.
Got you. So one of the things that clearly you are laboring is the need for premarital counseling. Good
quality premarital counseling.
No, I don't want it to sound like it's an indictment on people who are pastors like myself. But it's not every pastor can counsel good and in a quality way.
But send them to somebody who can do that.
All right.
I mean, we are all familiar with the Blue Book.
Yes.
Before they say I do.
Right.
Yes.
It's a serious handbook used by counselors, and it's solid, and it you know. So there are people who are willing to and able to provide the quality. And pastors should, ideally. I know pastors are busy, you know. They have 1,000,001 duties, you know.
Right.
But it makes sense to inform themselves, even though they may not be able to deliver that.
Okay. But then the second thing that she highlighted, Natalie, which is very important, something we've spoken about, is the place of the community. You call it like the...
third party.
Yes, and even the enrichment sessions and stuff like that.
Yes.
So there's a community beyond. You are seeing that marriages need that community where other persons are involved in their lives. So strengthen the relationship.
Yes. Look, when you go to university, how long do you spend there? We spend 3 years, we spend 4 years sometimes to qualify for something that sometimes we don't even stay there longer than 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Then how are we expecting till death do us part? That could be 50 years. Look at what life expectancy is. So are we truly thinking that the best way to enter into something that is for life, and we speak those words at the altar, you know?
Yes.
And I go get training at the university for a longer period from a career that we're not even using now.
Right.
So how does that make sense?
Yeah.
Got you.
You know? Because if I'm going to hire somebody, I'm going to look, if I need a chemist, I'm going to look and see if they did a 3-year degree in chemistry. I'm not looking for somebody with a major in English.
Right.
So I expect him to be qualified before he can do the job. So how do we allow people to go into marriage without giving them the solid grounding that they need? And I'm not saying that, I'm not here saying that the couples are totally not responsible for what happens within their marriage. I'm not saying that. They're also responsible for seeking help.
Yes.
But we need to give them as much help as possible and all the structures, because if not, something as simple as the toilet seat being left up or down can become a big war.
That's true.
Gotcha.
Right. So this is not just a question for you. I'm going to put Bishop on the spot where men are concerned. I find, just from my own experience and speaking to other women, that there's a challenge getting our men to commit to counseling. Bishop, as a pastor and a real man, and you have a lot of male, surrounding you, how would you encourage them to seek counseling, or what have you done based on your experience to encourage men to come out more? Because, I mean, Eloise is on the outside now of a marriage, looking back to say, maybe if she had the counseling, things would have been better. Or maybe if she had the enrichment and the support, things would have been better. Yeah. This is a powerful point. Yes. How do you encourage men, Bishop?
The truth is that I find that you can't speak to men from a distance. By such I mean, though you may represent an authority figure, but you need to become a friend of the man. And if you even have an agenda like that of really want to deal with marital issues or so on, you just don't go direct. Like I say, friendship plays that role where you perhaps talk about things, professional things, social things, sport things, and once you've built that bridge, you can engage in a non-threatening way, And it's not the easiest thing most times for a man to talk, you know, especially when the things are very near and dear and close to them. But once you speak their language, they will talk, you know. So it's really about a friendship that is very critical to get there. And once men can relate to you on that level, yes, and you appropriately have self-disclosure of yourself. You know, you are not coming as if you are the epitome of perfection, yes, but you have had your own struggles as well and failures even. Yes. So talk to me. You know, that kind of approach, I think. But Kate, as we seek to go down the stretch to wrap it, this may be, you know, inspirational or helpful for some persons. You would have seen that the divorce didn't just come upon you like that. There were signs of deterioration in the relationship. Yeah, what can you say, maybe some of the pitfalls that contributed to that and the ultimate severance?
Where do I start? Before I even say that, one of the things I need to say to people, which I think we did and we should not have done, we waited until we were far into trouble before we said anything to anybody. So, for example, our families, both families were shocked because they thought everything was fine.
Right.
And I think one of the things we need to do, because it's difficult to admit that things may not be going right, because you feel like you're a failure. I am failing at this. You know, you get married with all these hopes and these dreams and these things. But sometimes, you know, you look and you sort of begin to see the distance start to happen. Before you get married, you know, it's like you have these blinkers on and you see all the lovely things that bring you together. But then after you marry, you start to see the things that aren't so together, aren't so, you know, I'm trying to find the words for it. The things that are different about you. And I'm not talking about positive different. I'm talking about negative different, no.
Yes.
So you start to see those things and you start to, you know, wonder, how do you get these things to come together, right? And then all of a sudden you may notice that, hey, the other person is a party animal and I'm not so much of a party animal, or, you know, that kind of thing. So you start to notice we just started to notice some things. And then what was happening was that the communication then started to become a problem. And I can tell you, you see in a relationship,
tell me,
you see when the communication break down, you leave a big gap there, where each of you start to assume, you fill the gap with something that is not necessarily true. And when that happens, you know, you don't say to the other person, you know, I am thinking this. You tend to stay there with it and you stew. And sometimes it's nothing, you know.
Right.
But the communication is important, because you see, if you talk to each other, then that won't happen. And that was one of the things I was finding, that I think that the communication was not where it used to be before.
Yes.
Right? And, you know, the distance started growing and growing and growing. And you see, once the distance starts, everything becomes an issue.
Okay, so you just
everything. Yeah, as I say, it's like all of a sudden, before you get married, you see all the things that bring you together. But then afterwards, you start to notice all the things that are different, all the things that, and you start saying to yourself, then how I never see these things before? Yeah. But again, quality counseling would have, yes. And as I said, then you have this issue of, but we've been together so long. We should be easy in this. This should be easy. What's happening here? Right? And of course, you don't want to admit that, boy, things not going so right. And because, I mean, who are you going to tell? All these people who came to your wedding with all these wonderful expectations, some of them with bigger expectations than you, that this is forever.
Yes.
You know?
So you need to talk early to responsible people when there's a sense of
things not being, you know, or you start to feel a difference.
Or more importantly, even to talk to yourself, like I said, and not to assume when there's a gap, because it can be very detrimental.
It gets filled with, because one day the husband comes home from work, and this is just hypothetical, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Right.
He may even come home late, and he's acting different, and the wife may start to say, I wonder if he have a woman. And she sits down there for weeks, and he's wondering, why is she giving me face? He probably came home from work, and the boss was really unreasonable that day, and he had to stay late. He forget to call and tell her, honey, I'm going to be late. Right? And she starts to fill the gap.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
So just something like that. It could have been the wife, and then you start to fill the gap with things that don't necessarily go like that.
Yes.
And the longer you think this, the more angry you become, the more less likely you are to talk to the person, the less likely you are. So one thing I've learned is that you just be direct. If something is bothering you, you find that very diplomatic. Don't come with the accusation like, you're a woman. No, you just say, is something happening? Is there something that I should know? I care about you. I want to hear this. I just want to make sure that we are still on the same page here.
Yes. Got to wrap this one, but have to get in this. Did you end up being a very angry and bitter divorcee?
I certainly was angry, and I was disappointed.
Yes, I was.
Because because you expect marriage to be forever. That's what the vow says.
Right.
Till death do us part. Hopefully death is many years down the road when you're 90 years old.
Yes.
But you have these expectations, and it was a struggle. I have to tell you that during the breakdown of my marriage, right, things got, there was a lot of really crazy stuff in my head. I had a journal that I wrote in, and when I went back and I looked at some of the things I wrote, I was like, oh my God, this is what I was feeling. And during that period, how I felt I got through that was that I felt that God was actually standing there physically holding my hands in his.
Yes.
That's how I got through that. I actually felt as a physical presence, God holding my hands with his.
Your faith was intact at that time.
Yes.
Right.
And so I will tell people it is not, I don't know if I said this before, but what you break up of your marriage can send you go to arms house because we broke you. It can send you go to prison house because you don't want to kill your partner. It can send you go to hospital because you're sick.
Hospital house.
Right? It can really turn you upside down, make you feel like a failure.
Yes. Suicidal even.
But at the end of that, right, somehow we came through it now being, I think, the friends that we were before when we met originally. I think that's what I'd say.
So you have gone past the anger?
We have gotten past.
Disappointment.
Yes.
Hurts.
Yeah.
And you and your ex-husband can communicate now in a civil way.
Yes, we do. I would say it's more than civil.
Yes.
Wow. So when I tell people that it's possible, I'm not talking about something that's airy-fairy.
Right.
I can tell you, I am living it, because guess what? If you have children, you're going to have to meet each other over graduation, over when the first grandchild. You're going to meet over a wedding. You're going to meet over a funeral. And how are you? You have to be able to live decently with each other. Because my ex-husband flew all the way here each time from overseas for all the graduations, the fifth form graduation, the primary school graduation, the high school graduation, the sixth form and fifth form, the UWI graduation, everything, right? Let me give you an example. One of the times my son got one of those fancy awards that the high school does gives for great academic experience. Performance.
Yes.
And of course, as I usually do, I called his father immediately and I said, hey, your son, because when it's something, it's not his son, it's not our son. I said, your son got, this award. And he called him up immediately and said, congratulations, son. So my son turns to me and he says, you tell him that already?
Yes.
I said, yes. Why not?
Yes.
So it's possible, but it's hard.
Yes.
It's really hard.
Yes.
And I would say to people, just get as much support
as I can
going into this, because marriage is supposed to be fun, but you have to work at it. If you don't enjoy each other, why are you being married?
So once again, you are not blaming yourself like that to be disappointed now.
I went through a period when I thought I was a failure.
But you have been healed from that.
Yes.
And you're not spewing out anger and venom against him.
No.
You have a good cordial relationship.
We do.
So even when you see him with his wife now.
Well, I hardly, because they live in another country, I hardly.
Yes. Okay. But even when you see them, you are so healed that.
Yeah. And I am not saying I didn't have a part in or in the marriage. Yeah, because two people make or break a relationship.
Right.
But
this is a healed person we are looking at here now.
Healing. Until life is over, you are still a work in progress. I am still a work in progress.
I agree.
There we have. In live and living color, not holding back, willing to share for the benefit of many. And I think this was quite inspirational, Natalie. Yes. Not only to understand what is important in going to a relationship and a marriage, but what needs to happen in many instances to keep a marriage together. But life sometimes us have a way of working the other side, and we become disappointed and feel like rejecting our experiences. But all things are possible in terms of healing, because God was there almost divinely holding Eloise, Jacqueline, Cato. We thank her for being on set with us this day, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Eloise. I also want to thank our sponsor, Mattox Health and Fitness, our resident producer, George Malcolm Walker, our program developer, our program director, Damian De Aguilar. I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Foundation Christian Ministries. Continue to follow us on Facebook at New Foundation Christian Ministries and on Instagram at B1 Marriage Ministry. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Excellent.